So next, we'd like to welcome Team Broadbay. Please welcome them.
I'd like to tell you a short story. So in 2017, I attended the Mandela Washington Fellowship at the University of Notre Dame, and I met a gentleman from Togo. His name is Yakubu. So Yakubu is physically challenged, and he sells shoes in a village in Togo. So I had a chat with him. His shoes are beautiful. He showed me pictures, and I saw the potential of him reaching the rest of the world instead of just selling in Togo. I asked him why I wasn't doing that, and one of the problems, so there were two problems. One was logistics. Two was payments. He had no way of collecting money from his clients across the world. And at that time, I had a consumer application where customers were buying electricity units and airtime from the application. One of the biggest problems I had was also payments. So I thought we had a similar problem. I was in Zambia, he was in Togo, and we spent about a year at my company integrating, actually getting into an agreement with Barclays to use their payment gateway. Even when we managed, we could only collect card payments. And yet, over 60% of the adult population in Africa do not have bank accounts, but most of them have mobile money accounts. So we needed a way to collect money from them as well. I got frustrated, so I said, you know what? I'm going to start building a payments infrastructure, and it's going to be a Pan-African payment infrastructure. So I looked at it because my country has about 18 million people. So when you want to build a payment gateway, it's not viable just in Zambia alone. So I looked at Africa as a market, but Africa has about 1.4 billion people, good market, but it's fragmented. It's 54 countries, 54 different markets, different cultures. So we thought of building a gateway that unifies different payment methods in different countries. So you've got mobile money, you've got card payments, you've got banks, you've got other wallets. You bring them together. Now, the gateways, where I come from, the southern part of Africa, the payment infrastructures are owned by the banks. And the banks are trying to compete with the mobile network operators because they feel the mobile network operators are a threat. So our gateway was simply coming to unify all the competition. On this gateway, so what we did was we built an infrastructure in last year in September, and we started partners. So we partnered with the MNOs, we did the integration with the banks, and we charge 3.5% on transaction fees. We settle our merchants after 48 hours, but then we realized that some of them want instant access to finance. So we give them instant loans onto the platform, and we charge them 10%. The thing is, most of our merchants are informal merchants, and it wouldn't be easy for them to get onto the other payment gateways, like the ones owned by the banks. So what we do is we kind of formalize them because we now give them a digital footprint, and using the transaction histories, they can access finance. Even with the banks, they get loans from us. The MNOs charge us 2%. Visa and MasterCard, we access that through CyberSource. They charge us 2.9%. So one of the biggest problems, Africa being fragmented, 54 countries, one of the problems is regulation. So it's not easy to just say we want to scale across Africa. So it's not like going from one village to the other. So regulation is a problem. So what we did was we partnered, we're partnering with the biggest Pan-African bank, that's EcoBank, and to now white label some of our products and integrate all the wallets across Africa through them. Now, in a few months, we'll white label our product in Togo with EcoBank. And I look back at Yakubu, and I'm proud to say he's going to be one of our first merchants on the platform. What we are asking from you, if you want to join us, change the world, is only $1 million. Thank you. Oh.
Bright, quick question for me. Great to meet you. Interesting presentation. So my first question is really around how much investment to date has gone into the solution, and to what extent, because you're talking about a unified payment gateway. That sounds like quite an, a large undertaking, and it's going to cost a lot of money to achieve that. Do you have an MVP? What APIs do you have? What is it integrated into currently? Give us a bit of background around that.
Okay, so I came up with a team of 11 people, and we started building a product. So we launched it in September last year. So what we did was we just had the integrations, like just the back end, but then we now needed to build APIs to expose the merchants. But the problem is we needed more resources to do that. We needed more money because we needed to be certified on PCI DSS, so that's a different security level. So when we were looking for funding to do that, I met with a friend, one of the co-founders of Flutterwave, and we got into a partnership. We said, okay, we plan to expand to Southern Africa. So if this is what you are doing, we already have the APIs. While you are raising your funds, why don't we partner? We use the infrastructure in your country. So I said, well, that's good. So we partnered, we did the integration, and we started onboarding our merchants in September. By January, we had 500 merchants, and we had only invested $20,000 just raising from family and friends.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, the solution is not entirely your own. You're partnering with somebody else in order to onboard.
No. So the solution is entirely our own. We've brought them as a customer, so we are charging them to use our infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
In Zambia, okay, your home country.
Yes.
What you're doing, you are actually venturing into the territory of banks. And I'm sure that there are regulations that your central bank have regarding to this.
Yes.
The first question is, have you approached your central bank? And do you have the license? Do you have the license to do this? Because in Ghana, my country, you cannot do this without the central bank's regulation and license.
Yes.
Tell me about your country.
Yes. So it's the same thing in Zambia. Now, in Zambia, we have a payments license. So that's why I mentioned that our aim is to scale across Africa, but regulation is going to be one of the problems. So in Zambia, we are covered because of a license. But then going across Africa, we are partnering with the banks.
No, I don't want you to mislead us here. You see, the issue is payment license is different from some of the things you have made mention here. You spoke of giving credit and charging 10%. Payment license doesn't cover that.
Okay.
Are you aware of that?
Yes.
So what are you doing? You are going to do an illegal business with our funds?
Okay, so let me explain a little bit.
Okay.
So we have a payments license. So the first thing we did was to get a payments license to operate the payment gateway. Then when we started lending, we went back to the central bank, and they told us, so we applied for a MFI license. But then they told us, you cannot use the same company to get the same license. So what we did was we now had to register a subsidiary of that company and applied for a money lender's license.
Yes, so you are yet to have that.
No, we do have.
You have it.
Yes. Before we did all that before we launched in September.
I see.
Yes.
Let me help him out. Just a follow-up question. So,
Yes, sir.
So first of all, SMEs are the lifeblood of the continent. So I think it's really great that you're trying to solve the problem. This is really tough.
Thank you.
So fantastic with that. I like your start in the sense that you've actually got live clients on this, customers. You mentioned 500.
Yes.
How active? What's the flow? Part of it is really getting to earlier question, the MVP. So talk to us about that you got traction, that this is working. That's question one. But the biggest question is, why are you different? This is an area that many people find attractive. So how are you differentiating yourself?
Okay. So first of all, when we started, because in my country we were, like I said, the gateways, they are owned by the banks. So just for a small company coming up and say, we'll help you collect money, they were a little bit skeptical. So for a few months, the transactions, there were a lot of transactions, but there were small amounts because people were just testing. So November, December, that's when we got a lot of traction. So the 500 merchants I'm talking about, those are actually the active users. So we have close to about 1,000 merchants, some of them still in review. Because of regulation, we can't just approve them. So a lot of them are in review. Some of them just registered and they're not transacting. And the other question was?
Why are you different?
Why are we different? So I feel we are different because we're not in it to compete. Everybody, they are getting into the space, but they are competing. It's war. You've got our friends in West Africa, they have the banks, they have the fintechs, everyone is going towards the same market. In Southern Africa, you've got the banks, you've got the MNOs, they are going into the same market. We are here saying, okay, we want to unify you. I think that's what makes us different.
Bright, may I just very briefly? Now you, Bright, are going into a ferocious battle here. What about your soldiers? What about your team? And why are you confident that you can win that battle with that team?
I think my team believes in me.
All right.
That's the first thing I'd like to say.
Believe them, exactly.
That's the first thing I'd like to say. I've come up with ideas that I have doubted myself, and they've given me the confidence because the way they believe in me. So even I also believe in my team. So when I tell them this is what we're going to do, we don't sleep until we do it. We have a different culture back in Africa. There's no sense of ownership. So people go to work, they get paid, and they knock off. I can't afford my team. Like the market value, I can't afford my team. My team, we don't knock off. Sometimes we leave at midnight because something has to work. That's how much I believe in my team, and that's how much they believe in me.
All right.